Right, hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show. Coming at you live every Wednesday on YouTube, Twitter, now called X, and the other one, Facebook as well. I'm the host, Mark Devlin. This is Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist show, which means politics, Scottish politics from a anti-nationalist perspective. I'm here tonight with my co-hosts, David Griffiths and Mary Devlin. How are you tonight, David?
Well, I would say resplendent. It will be a little cold. In fact, a lot cold down here in the coast. It's not hot.
Yes, it is a little bit there. And Mary, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, but I'm just a little bit discombobulated about how quickly it seems to have gone from summer to like almost Christmas.
Well,
I feel as if I've fallen asleep and missed 2 months.
Yes, Rip Van Mary, as it were there. Anyway, David, what are you going to be talking about tonight?
Tonight, I will be talking about the winter fuel allowance and Anas Sarwar's pledge to reinstate it.
Oh, yes, that is quite controversial, certainly. Mary, what have you got for us?
I'm going to be talking about the legal aid crisis.
Legal aid crisis, which I haven't heard very much about, to be honest, so that's something that will be new. And we're going to be all talking about SNP grifters, which is a continuing story, as we know, and dubious polling as well. So...
And, of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
Right, so that's all great, and we will see you again in just a few seconds. Great, welcome back to the Majority Show, which is Scotland's #1 politics chat from an anti-nationalist perspective. I'm Mark Devlin, host of the show, with you tonight for an hour and just a little bit, most likely. Here tonight, my co-hosts Mary Devlin and David Griffiths. Majority's aim is a thriving Scotland without the toxic nationalism that is strangling Scotland's potential. As always, a huge thanks to our friends at UK United Against Separation, Facebook page, from where many of you are watching tonight.
And remember, sharing is caring. So the best thing you can do is to like the show on YouTube, even if you don't subscribe. Drop a like, and if you can subscribe, please do so. All helps to increase the reach of the show at the click of one button.
Very good.
And as usual, I will be managing the relentless flow of comments, so please keep them short and snappy, and I'll try to put as many up on screen as I can.
Right, okay, we've got a lot to go through tonight, but of course we'll start with a topic that we're all very used to, and that is the grift of SNP politicians. Last week we told the sorry tale of how Stephen Flynn had decided to try and get a second job at Holyrood. And that kind of only went to prove that, at the best, SNP MPs work half of the time. But to be more precise, do we really need to pay them for half a job? Anyway, or half a commitment. The Skull has justified his move by claiming he would spare taxpayers money. Spare taxpayers and opposition parties the cost of holding a by-election. Oh, he's so generous.
He's all heart.
He is indeed. Anyway, he did a car crash interview. He insisted that he didn't want to be doing this. And as I said, most people, when they don't want to do something, they don't actually do it, but he persists nonetheless. I've got the little bit clip here, which I haven't actually watched, so we'll watch maybe a minute of it and see how it goes.
When you refer to Audrey, you're talking about Audrey Nicholl, who, of course, is the sitting MSP for Aberdeen South and Kincardine North, the constituency you want. The Sunday Mail this morning is suggesting you called her the night before you made this announcement and suggested to her that she might stand aside. Did you?
That's a lie, Martin.
Right. So they're completely wrong. You didn't make that call. When did you speak to her? When did you tell her that you were going to do this?
So I did call Audrey the night before. We had a fairly cordial conversation, albeit brief. Myself and Audrey speak relatively frequently, as I'm sure you can imagine. I made clear to her my intentions. Audrey, of course, suggested that some had been thinking that I may seek to seek candidacy in Dundee, which I assume would be a much bigger story. I don't want to do that. I live in Aberdeen. This is where my life is. I'm very fortunate to represent the people here. She's told me that she wasn't overly surprised at the decision that I was taking, that I was obviously seeking to progress my activities in politics, and that was ultimately the end of the conversation. I had hoped it had happened sooner. There's obviously been significant goings on in Aberdeen locally with regards to politics, and I thought it was best to leave Audrey to deal with some of that. I, of course, was dealing with other things in my own personal life, which...
I'll just leave that for now. It's all very self-serving there, I think. David, what do you think this is? I mean, okay, he says he doesn't want to do it. Why do you think he is doing it?
Well, I mean, what we're seeing here is classic Flynn traits, which is opportunism, bullying, hypocrisy, and some would even add misogyny. The fact that he thinks he can just bulldoze a sitting female SNP MSP out the way is quite breathtaking, really. But let's face it, ever since he led the SNP to this humiliating electoral wipeout in July, he's been sitting there with a face like Fez, looking like he's found £1 and lost a £20 note. We all know he wants to be leader. There's no question about that. He's made it clear himself that he's ambitious. He keeps saying it. And as I've said several times, the Westminster SNP contingent, led by Flynn, hold the Holyrood SNP contingent in complete open contempt. A bunch of effing idiots. And believe me, they don't abbreviate the word. They actually call them that. That's a term I've heard used several times. Now he thinks, obviously, now's the time to make his first move. But what I don't get is he could have stood in Conservative-held Aberdeenshire West. That wouldn't have ruffled any feathers at all because there's no sitting MSP in his. He could also have sat or applied to stand in any of the seats which are just about to be vacated by some of the SNP guys who we know are going to stand down, like Hamza, for example, who looks after Glasgow Pollock from Broughty Ferry, which is 140 miles away. I know, exactly. That's a point. But, at the time, of course, that he was elected, let's not forget, in 2019, when he became a Westminster MP, his first move was to stand down as an Aberdeen SNP councillor, which he was at the time. So it's strange that he should think now that the two roles can be held simultaneously, because he said at the time, I have also consistently stated that it is not practically possible to serve a full term in a parliament and dedicate time to be an effective local councillor. Oh, really? But it's okay to be an MSP? Well, that just shows what a nothing job an MSP is, doesn't it, then, Flinny boy? What an absolute joke.
It's just, I put up a thing from this article here, Jackie Bailey, bid for second job, reveals how little SNP MPs actually do, but I think it certainly applies both ways.
Yeah.
The issue here, I think, is, why this? I thought it was a very interesting point that you had brought up, that why didn't he just take one of these empty seats? It's very weird, just bulldozing his way in in somewhere. He's like, I want this one.
Why that particular one, though?
He says, let's not forget, his Westminster constituency is Aberdeen South. Right, okay, fine. He wants to stand in Aberdeen South and North Kincardine. Well, if you're going to take in an additional area, why don't you just take neighbouring Aberdeenshire West, and then you could represent both Aberdeen South and Aberdeenshire West, which is no different from representing Aberdeen South and North Kincardine. So I genuinely don't understand that. Could it be, has Audrey Nicholl done something to upset him? I can't see it. I wouldn't have thought so. But
no, it doesn't seem that way. She just seems to be the target of this nonsense.
Yeah, she just looked like an easy target.
Yeah, perhaps she's an easy target. Okay, anyway, so actually, Audrey Nicholl, who currently represents Aberdeen South, North Kincardine, said, "For me, I'm not persuaded that it's possible to give two roles the attention and focus they deserve or need. And that, in turn, directly impacts the way you represent your constituency." So is there going to be, sorry, I missed something, but is there going to be a primary type of thing, like a leadership contest in there?
Well, this is what I'm not sure about either, and I've been encouraging Scotland's political journalists to look into this, because I don't know what the procedure is for SNP nominees to be selected. I knew that they had to apply by last Monday, which duly a lot of them did, including people who clearly aren't going to stand, like Sturgeon and Humza. They applied.
Yes.
Several other MPs did as well. I'm sure you saw this, David Duggan. They say Stephen Gethins as well. They say Deirdre Brock as well. Anyway, we'll see. But
Alan Smith,
exactly.
Yes.
He was reported to apply today. But as I understand it, it will go down to a vote of the local SNP membership, as I understand it. It's not like the NEC will pick or the cabinet will pick it.
Oh, really?
That's
Well,
what
if
I
it's local
believe.
members, then maybe Audrey's in with a chance, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
from the interloper coming in. Now, Flynn's attempt to sit in both parliaments could yet be ruined by Graham Simpson, who's a Tory MSP, who's bringing forward an amendment to election legislation currently being passing through Holyrood, saying that there shouldn't be any dual mandates. If passed, it would mean any MPs elected to Holyrood would have to quit Westminster within 8 days. Actually, surprisingly enough, Labour and the Greens have said they would back this amendment, meaning that it would likely pass if the Lib Dems and his Tory colleagues also supported them. It seems likely they would support them, I would think. Some SNP MSPs are urging John Swinney to support the ban, and in a vote that could take place before Christmas. The phrase "turkeys voting for Christmas" has come to mind.
Well, that's exactly right, because if you were a sitting SNP MSP, particularly a female one, and you saw this happening, would you say, yeah, that's fine, I tell you what, let's let some of these SNP Westminster guys do 2 jobs, no problem at all, yeah, I'm all for that, yeah. Of course you wouldn't. You'd say, bugger it off, no chance.
Yeah,
no.
Exactly. It seems just a crisis of their own making, I suppose. Mary, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially at a time when they're talking about there have to be more women.
True.
MSPs,
well,
and then they go
when they're cutting their salaries, cutting jobs in the headquarters as well. Now, there was a bit in this Times article that I read. Actually, I don't know where it is. I don't know if I've pulled it up anyway. I don't have the actual article to show, but there was a bit in it I thought was quite amusing. It said, an SNP source told the Times, cocky or not, unfortunately for them, he's the guy who cracked PMQs, led calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, took on the Speaker of the House of Commons, dominated UK-wide TV debates, and forced votes that led to Labour rebellions and suspensions. I mean, David, do you remember any of that? Just wondering.
I would say
fantasy.
Exactly. Not a single word of that rings a bell. He dominated UK-wide debates. I must have slept through that one, guys. I'll tell you what, I
Was
think
even in them?
Exactly. I think the Scottish electorate didn't notice that either. But what I do remember, Mr. Flynn, is I remember you taking over as SNP's Westminster leader after publicly knifing Ian Blackford in the back. And then I remember when he did take over, the SNP at Westminster had 47 MPs, plus Margaret Ferrier, who was still there. So effectively 48. And after just over 18 months of Flynn single-handedly dominating Westminster, the number of SNP MPs was reduced from 48 to 9. So if that constitutes a successful track record, which apparently it does, fine, please do come up and lead the party. I can't wait to see you repeating the dose at Holyrood. So please bring it, baby.
Yeah, that's it's quite something, this thing here. I mean, definitely he was trying to say it's not his ambition, but basically everyone, his dog and the cat and any other pets that you have in your home, everyone knows that he's there to take Swinney's job, right?
Exactly.
So Swinney is a bit of a quandary, because is he going to vote for this thing? Because it basically would stop Flynn coming up and taking his job. Yep. So that's... so that's quite good, I think. Anyway, right, okay. Thank you all for being with us. Very nice to see all your comments coming in today. Okay, on this cold evening. It's now winter. Anyway, we will take a short break. Back in a few seconds, we're going to talk about more grifters. We'll see you in a second. Right, okay, first though, majority survives in Thailand. Donations from people like yourself who are watching this. Your donations, all kinds, big and small. If you would like to help keep the show going and help us also prepare for 2026 by keeping it going, and please do donate on our website. It's very easy. You can go to our website and just click the donate button. It's on the right hand side of every page, or if you're on YouTube, you can put a super thanks or a super sticker in here. And if you do that, we do try and shout it out, although the system doesn't highlight that much for us. Anyway, right, talking about other people on the SNP gravy train. All aboard the gravy train. It is, or should we say the gravy limousine? Scottish Health Secretary Neil Gray has come under pressure for using a ministerial car to attend football games. He has been chauffeured to 6 football matches at Hampden since becoming a minister, 4 of which, just coincidentally, included Aberdeen, the team he supports. Gray registered the events as official government visits. In a statement to the Scottish Parliament, he's also admitted using an official car to attend 5 Scotland matches and had been accompanied by a family member or guest to 6 of the matches, presumably in the same car. He apologised in a ministerial statement and conceded that he should have went to a wider range of football matches. So basically he said he should have been chauffeured to more football. That's quite a defence, that one, isn't it?
He's gone all in on that one.
That's the best form of defence is attack, no doubt. As usual, SNP circled the wagons, tried to shoot down anyone who thought this was extremely dodgy behaviour. 2 Jobs Flynn defended him, saying, our sports minister going to sporting events is not a scandal. He's doing his job, and he's doing his job for the best of his ability. To the best of his ability, David?
Well, guys, first off, what I'd just like to ask is, what is all this Gray as sports minister excuse about? Neil Gray is the SNP Cabinet Secretary for Health and Social Care, okay? Marie Todd is the sports minister in Holyrood. So, first question would be, how many football matches has Marie Todd attended in a limousine, accompanied by family members, in order to carry out essential engagements? There's question number 1.
Yes.
Question number 2, does Marie Todd then, in her role as sports minister, report to the health minister? So he has line responsibility for the sports minister, does he? Right, well, that makes him the sports minister's boss. Doesn't make him the sports minister. So why do we keep hearing this? So, and also, or is Gray doing the job for her and she's just getting paid for it? I mean, seriously. But where and how does the health minister's ability extend to attending football matches? I just don't get that at all. What the hell does an Aberdeen game have to do with the health minister's ability to perform his role? I seriously don't get it. Very, very strange.
You would think that the worst time to conduct any business would be during a football match. I mean, everyone's watching the football match. So what business is being discussed or conducted?
Well, you could say there's some schmoozing before and after. But he's not saying
that's not working, though.
He's not saying that. He's basically saying, I went to the games. But other people try to defend him as a sports minister. I'm like, yeah, same with. Well, actually, I didn't actually realise this, David, until you pointed it out. This is a bit weird. We already have a sports minister who's being paid 120,000 or whatever it is a year. Anyway, and what are they doing with all this? Anyway, let's talk about his ability. He says, would this be the same Neil Gray who was shamed after presiding over record lows in the Scottish NHS? With a winter crisis impending, he submitted a plan to the Scottish Government, I've got a thing out here, saying that for his plan, but actually didn't have any new information in it. And under his leadership, the crisis in Scotland's accident and emergency wards has deteriorated with the worst figures ever, with only 69% of people being seen within the 4-hour target in A&E, and 13,000 people waiting over 8 hours, 5,000 people waiting over 12 hours. I mean, you have to think about this for a second, because he couldn't actually improve on Humza Yousaf's performance. Right. I mean, how bad do you have to be to not do things better than Humza Yousaf? It's quite something. Okay, and so now George Folks, the Labour peer, he said Neil Gray has clearly broken rule paragraph 101 of the Ministerial Code, which says official transport should not be used for private business. But John Swinney,
who knows better?
Yes, who knows better. He said that he would not refer Gray for investigation under the Ministerial Code, and he had considered the matter closed. Well, David, is the matter closed, or do you think the people might just have something to say about this?
Oh, do you know, guys? Well, let's just remind ourselves. Margaret Ferrier thought the matter was closed when she said, yeah, I know I broke COVID laws. I'm sorry, but, these things happen. And then Michael Matheson thought the matter was closed, as did John Swinney, I seem to remember, when Matheson spent £11,000 watching Celtic matches from Morocco. And then, exactly. And then the SNP even tried to hush up Derek Mackay, sex-pesting a schoolboy. They put pressure on the Sun not to print the story. So they thought they could close and draw a line under all those matters and got it wrong every time. And they think the Scottish electorate will look the other way when presented with this pack of very, very blatant lies. They've got another thing coming. But one thing I would just say here, guys, just to add, I won't dwell on this. I'm a football fanatic. As you know, I love attending matches, and I have very well versed in arranging meetings from the days when I worked to coincide with matches.
Okay.
But this is how you do it. What you do is, say you live in a particular place and you're going to a match somewhere else. What you do is you fix a meeting with a supplier or a customer that afternoon if it's an evening game.
Right.
And so you go to the match using your own transport. I did this when I was living in Brighton, and there was a Scotland game on in Birmingham one evening. And I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll go to a meeting. I fixed a meeting with a supplier near Reading, and I drove up the M40, dead easy. But what you don't do is hire a bloody limousine and then say, oh, come on, I was going to a game, but I had to be there. You have to understand. And you certainly don't claim expenses for it. And you most definitely don't take your family members with you in this limousine. Only a complete idiot would do that. And only a bigger idiot would say, oh, that's all fine. So that's how it's done. But to do this is a blatant abuse of his ministerial role. It's disgusting, really. It's unforgivable.
It gives me kind of the vibes of like, the emperor's entourage. I lived in Japan for a while, but, it goes down the road, in these certain countries, Russia is the same, probably North Korea is similar. They've got the Imperial
Flags.
procession, and they've got the flags on the front of the car. That's what they need, right? They have the flags here, and it gives you that kind of thing, like they're just taking the mick, right? They're really just doing that. I mean, Mary and I were talking about this earlier and wondering why this was happening. I think it's just this idea that they just think, well, first of all, they think they're not going to get caught. That's the number one thing. Yes. But I think the other thing is that these people have never had real jobs in their life, and or barely had real jobs. Neil Gray actually was a journalist for a little while, for a few years, but barely had those jobs, and they've never had big salaries. And I think when they get this access to this money and perks, they just go, "Woo! This is all ours. This is great. This is it, and we can use it for whatever we like." And that's not the way it is. It's actually the taxpayers' money.
Quite right.
That's the thing.
What I was saying earlier was I think that this has been going on for so long, and everybody else has been doing it. And so they're like, oh, this is just what we do. We could just, if we want to take a chauffeured limousine to a football game, then that's what I'll do.
Alan's saying here, motorcycle escort as well. I mean, that's like kind of up in the ante. Oh, I didn't go to enough matches. I should go to a whole load more. And, by the way, because I'm so important, and I should get a motorcycle escort and, free tea cakes. I mean, that kind of thing. It's like, that's just the freebies that we're hearing about.
Exactly. One declared, exactly.
What do they get when they get to the stadium and all this type of stuff?
Well, he didn't declare any of that, did he?
Didn't declare the hospitality he received at the stadium. That's quite right, yeah. Because almost certainly he would have been in hospitality there, knowing Hampden, Anyway.
Right, okay, well, the grift must continue. The gravy train or gravy limousine will go along with its motorcycle escorts, and you will stand at the side of the road and you'll be forced to bow whenever they pass. That is the way they would like it to be, but that's not the way it should be or the way it will be.
Or maybe they don't want us to cast any eyes upon them. In the old days when you had to look away, you weren't allowed to.
People had to turn back, right? They weren't allowed to look at the emperor. Anyway.
Not that anybody would recognise Neil Gray anyway, to be honest, if you saw him.
Has he got like a wave, like the Queen? Special wave. His wave's like this.
Yeah.
To the Scottish people.
Yes, exactly.
I didn't even get back, I'll tell you that. Anyway, never mind.
Well, these are quality ad-libs. Anyway, and that's why you're here tonight watching this show, where you could be doing so many other things. We really appreciate taking time to watch the show here. Every week we get more people watching, thanks to you for telling your friends and so on about this is the only place to talk about these issues. In fact, it is. Because there's nothing in the BBC or anything like that. If you get the BBC, who have they got on there? A bunch of idiots who just hand wave and put everything to the side. This is what it's about us here. Right. I'm going to take another short break, and we're going to come back and talk about today's biased polling, or maybe not so much biased polling, but misleading polling. All right, see you in a second. Right, we have, okay. Oh, yes. Did you know that Santa hates the SNP?
Okay.
Yes, he's been busy.
Where's this going?
Yes, he's been busy in his workshop making a range of amazing majority T-shirts, mugs, and mouse pads that you can give as presents this Christmas. Is there someone special in your life who would love to drive a bulldozer through Holyrood? Then watch them smile on Christmas morning as they see Santa has delivered an amazing Abolish Holyrood t-shirt. Get your orders in now at the Majority Shop, which is on our website.
Just on that analogy, Mark, doesn't Santa exploit the elves then, is he?
Oh, good
No,
point.
no. Let's not.
I don't want any,
He's a fair employer.
child labour or elf labour.
No. That's the other Santa. Evil Santa supports the SNP.
Yes,
That's that one. He exploits the workers, and he goes around in the motorcade and goes to Hampden matches.
In limousines, yeah.
That's what he does anyway. Even better, a part of the sale of every T-shirt, mug, or mouse mat goes to supporting the show. So get buying those right now, because this is the time. Let's see, it's 20th of November right now, and you've got to get it delivered. It takes a week and a half so to get delivered, get ordered. So hit that button, do that. Thank you for your support, it says here. Right, let's talk about today's polling. If you read the front page of tomorrow's national newspaper, you'll be forgiven for thinking that independence was back on the menu. In a post today, they said, a survey has found that most Scots choose independence when asked to pick their first preference for the constitutional future of the country. Let me see if I've got this anyway here. No, don't have. Actually, I have that thing there. Okay, so anyway, we couldn't forgive you for actually reading National. Just keep that in the bin. But anyway, this result is because the poll today was released by Survation, and it's unsurprising. But the actual results of this poll don't show a big surge for independence. They, in fact, show that 58% of Scots would vote no to independence, and only 42% of Scots who filled in the survey anyway would vote yes. The National is lying. I know. It's difficult to believe.
No.
Difficult to believe. Anyway, in fact, the way this poll worked was it put out a number of constitutional options that people had to rank. For example, the existing status quo, and independence within the EU, independence outside the EU, increased powers for the Scottish Parliament, or just get rid of the Scottish Parliament altogether. Now, if I'll show you this wee chart, and you'll see where we are. Oh, right, okay. Right, okay, maybe it's a bit difficult to see at that size. But anyway, independence within Europe, which is the fourth one down, was the first preference for 34% of those polled, while 22% of those polled wanted the existing system as their top choice. That's the second one down. And then 19% opted for a Holyrood with increased powers. That was the third one down. Right. So, David, first of all, what did you think of this poll?
Well, yeah, I actually read it before I knew we were going to talk about it, and it's very simple. It is transparent, positive presentation of disappointing pro-independence polling. That's all it is, because 42% is much lower than it has been consistently in polls leading up to the election in July. The correct way to present these stats, very simply, is to say that support for independence has fallen from 45% almost in 2014, 10 years ago, to 42% now. And that's despite presenting numerous options, trying to boost it by saying, what about this verse of independence? What about that one? It's ridiculous. Now, this is just another poor attempt to breathe life into the cadaverous independence movement, or to be more accurate, in fact, it's an attempt to resuscitate the lucrative Scottish independence industry, which keeps so many people in houses. It's just nonsense. It's a clear attempt to say that support for independence is higher than it actually is, and we're not fooling anybody with this at all. Independence is dead. There is no path to it, and people don't want it. I don't even know why we're talking about it.
No, I know. I think we mentioned this before. It's like a attempt to resuscitate a dead horse while you're beating it.
Quite.
That type of thing. Anyway, but there was something interesting. I thought something interesting inside these results, because the survey found, if you look at the very top one, it found that 17% of those would prefer the country to be governed directly from the UK with no Scottish Parliament. Which kind of broadly matches the 20% or so that we've seen so far. But if we look down at the bottom one, we see, and as an independent country outside of the European Union, that's only 8%, right?
Yep.
And so, in fact, when you look at the 17%, broadly, it's actually not that different from within the UK with the same powers or with more powers. No, with more power, the same powers or more powers. So it's not that far off. So we're actually, yes, I see that. So it's very. Actually, I think that we can take some lessons from this to say that it is perhaps abolish holidays, perhaps growing here. Now, one of the things it says here is about the way the questions are phrased in this, and someone pointed that out there.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, David, there isn't going to be a referendum
Nope.
to start, and there's not independence.
No.
It's breaking up the UK, right? That's if they every poll that said break up, do you want to break up the UK?
No.
Then people say they don't like it, of course, or get rid of break up the UK and lose the pound. They really hate it. So there's that. So we're getting this continuous. It's a gaslighting. It really is gaslighting. More gas than Grangemouth refinery.
Yeah.
But the final one is it's not Scotland in Europe, it's Scotland in the EU. And the EU would not accept Scotland's a member for many years. So we have all these things. These are small little nudges, behavioural nudges, right?
Yeah.
They're saying, do you want independence in the EU? When the actual question is, do you want to break up the UK and put a hard border against the rest of the UK while joining the European Union that will take 15 or more years?
Yeah.
Now, who's going to answer yes to that? I think, and this is the sleight of hand, honestly, sleight of hand misdirection they've been pushing on as this gaslighting. And what's it all for?
Yeah.
So that Neil Gray can get free trips to the football. That's it. That's really what it's for. I mean, we see through this. You watching the show see through this. But when will they see through it, David?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, the Scottish electorate showed on July the 4th, they see right through the SNP's transparent lies. Your point about the EU is quite right. Not only would Scotland have to wait, at the moment, there have been no new additions to EU countries since before 2013. There were 5 countries effectively having applied, so in the queue, if you like, as of 2013. They're all still in the queue. So that's 11 years ago. But that's just how long it would take if Scotland applied. Scotland isn't going to get independence ever in the time to come. But in addition to that, they will never meet EU entry criteria anyway, because you have to have your debt as a particular ratio of your GDP, and Scotland's is like massive. It's supposed to be capped to like 3% before we'll even think about taking in Scotland's during COVID was at 21%. Now it's about 11%. So there's no chance, none at all. And of course, we know all of the other arguments about, it would set a bad precedent for Spain and other countries which have got breakaway regions also. So it's just never going to happen. So it's ludicrous. But you get these polls and they mean absolutely nothing. I think one of the comments there was that Angus Robertson's company commissioned this poll, which doesn't surprise me. As I've said on Twitter, these polls are as meaningless as saying to the polling the public to say, would you like to abolish income tax? Yeah, okay, great. And then 60% of people say, that would be great. Imagine if I didn't have to pay income tax. But of course, it's impossible because the government wouldn't be able to pay for any public services. So it's never going to happen. And similarly, independence is never going to happen. So why people are being asked this question, I really don't know. I genuinely don't.
They're just trying to...
Because they're paying for it.
Well, they're trying to... they're paying for it on one side. They're trying to get a front page in the National that basically says whatever it's going to be, 58%. That's what they're going to say, 58% tomorrow. They're going to say that. And then a bunch of... They're basically lying to themselves and lying to their own readers. They're making money. The National's making money out of these lies, and Angus Robertson making money out of these lies, and it's just like, I think just people are like, why? Why are we doing this?
As we said, it's just feeding the lucrative independence industry, because that's all it is. It's not moving the cause of independence any further forward at all. It can't do. There is no path, as we've said for years. There isn't a path. So eventually people will just say, I'm sick of talking about this. And that's what they showed in July. I know people, supporters of independence, who said, this isn't the time. I'm not voting SNP now. I'm going to vote Labour. And that's what they did in massive numbers. And
the interesting thing to me is that in these recent by-elections, people haven't returned.
That's true.
And so that's perhaps an encouraging sign. We've had a lot of things there. Okay, very good. Right. Dodgy polling.
Dodgy
Really.
polling indeed.
Trying to gaslight us all.
Yeah.
It's the latest gaslighting word. I just want to use it all the time. But I mean, that's what it is. Basically, just trying to convince us that this is going to happen. It's not. Right, we're going to be back in a few seconds. David is going to talk about the winter fuel allowance. Okay, see you in a second.
I'm here. Right. So
It's getting quite cold. This is a good time to talk about the winter fuel allowance.
Absolutely. Okay, so as we all know, the Labour Westminster government has been in office for just over 4 months, and far and away their most contentious decision so far made by the fledgling government was to scrap the winter fuel allowance for old age pensioners, which led to a relentless storm of criticism from all sides. Of course, in Scotland, the SNP has led the way in screaming about the injustice of this move, conveniently forgetting, of course, that the ability to give or take away this allowance is devolved, which means the SNP could reinstate the winter fuel allowance for Scottish pensioners in Holyrood without having to seek any authorisation from Westminster. But again, as we know, the SNP has refused to reinstate the winter fuel allowance because it's true and it's clear that they would far rather allow Scottish OEPs to suffer in order to make political capital at the expense of Westminster and particularly Labour than actually doing what they scream at Labour to do. And that's the SNP for you. And in any event, it emerged some time ago that Shona Robertson was already looking at ways to cut the winter fuel allowance, which she was planning to announce in the budget in 2 weeks' time. She was looking at how it could be cut, is the truth. That came out weeks ago. Anyway, just yesterday, a new variable entered the equation when Anna Sarwar announced that a Labour Holyrood government would reinstate the allowance for OEPs in Scotland. Now, this was obviously met with the predictable range of responses. The National, the pro-independence Scottish rag, called it a screeching U-turn from Sarwar. And they gleefully reported that all 37 Labour Scottish Westminster MPs voted for the Labour government plan to remove winter fuel allowance from OEPs who do not currently receive pension credit. Meanwhile, Sarwar said, well, of course, the winter fuel allowance will be reinstated in Scotland to ensure a fairer system, ensuring those who need support get it. So what you've got is a situation where Westminster Scottish Labour MPs are voting to scrap the winter fuel allowance, while Scottish Labour in Holyrood is planning to reintroduce the winter fuel allowance in Scotland. Is this a contradiction, everyone asks? Well, to an extent it is, but remember, it's a devolved issue, which means a Labour government in Holyrood could reintroduce it in Scotland without the UK government having to incur, if you like, the cost of reinstating the allowance throughout the UK. And there are various places in the UK where the average winter temperature is significantly higher than it is in Scotland. So you necessarily need the UK government to pay for pensioners in, let's say, Devon and Cornwall, just to get people in Braemar some more money. You don't need to do that. And that's the whole point of devolution. And isn't that, in fact, the very essence of devolution? You devolve these powers so that these decisions can be made, not at a national level with all the associated costs, but at a regional level. Isn't that what devolution is all about, Mark?
Certainly. I mean, it should be even done without a parliament in its way. It could be done by local authority level as well. But I just wonder if this was a way. I mean, I'm pretty certain this is actually the case, that it was set up as a way to put the SNP in the back foot. Because basically, if the SNP then reinstate the winter fuel allowance, then Labour will point to their earlier refusal and say they're just copycats. Now they're just copying Anna Sarwar, copying Labour. But if they don't reinstate it, then they can say that the SNP hates Scottish pensioners, which they, by not reinstating, they've done it. So the SNP basically started off with this, making it into a political football by not using their funds, of course, which come from the UK government anyway, to mitigate the winter fuel allowance. And now they're stuck, because whatever way they turn, it's not going to work out well for them. Now, they might be saying, oh, this is gleeful, a U-turn and all that. But we're talking about effectiveness and what people think. It's a certain thing. And I think a lot of this is focused on the Holyrood election that's coming up, the 2026. And if Labour can say in Scotland, well, we'll bring it back here, and this is how devolution works, then I think people can go with that. But if SNP are like, well, we just don't want to do it, then because we don't want to teach Labour a lesson, and people are like, well, you are really then just playing politics with it. It's a kind of weird turnaround from what was initially quite a bad situation.
Yeah, it's true. I agree with that. I think that's an analysis which holds a lot of water potentially. I remember a couple of weeks ago I'd raised the possibility that maybe Labour is thinking, well, we want to get a second term in Westminster, and maybe we should keep the SNP in power in Scotland because they're a lot less effective when they're in power than when they're in opposition. And I put that question. I met a local MP on the train just by accident. A Labour MP, because in here, so they're all Labour now. And I said, is this what you're thinking? And he said, absolutely not. Labour is desperate to get into Holyrood to clean up the whole of the civil service here, which is effectively just doing the work of the SNP.
Yes.
So they're, from what I'm being told by Labour figures, they're certainly not looking to sacrifice Scotland. So yeah, I think you're right. Anna Sauer could just have come up with a very important strategic stroke tactical move here, because it really does put pressure on Robinson. If she doesn't do this, it makes the SNP look uncaring. If she does this, all her sums are blown, and we know already they're bitching about how little money they've got comparatively.
Well, if she does it now, the Labour can just say, "Well, you're just following us." And what's the point of even? What's the point of voting SNP if they're just going to copycat anything we do anyway? And you can get rid of all the nonsense they talk about independence all the time as well. I think it's perhaps making a silk's purse out of sow's ear to some extent. I'd be quite cynical to think it was planned all along, but Paul, I think this thing here, the 2026, the 2026 election is a big election. Star Wars. It's going to be a big litmus test on Starmer, and Starmer, of course, but basically on Starmer. That's the biggest one that's coming up, and I think it's in tune with local English elections as well, same time, right? Maybe. So it's they want to win it, and this is the first sign of some sense, I think, of political sense.
Yes.
I've seen from them. We can talk about political sense. Whereas I did get a note from Councillor Thomas Kerr, who's a friend of the show, I should say, saying, "Well, but the pensioners are suffering while this is going on." And yes, that is unfortunate that people are worried about that in the meantime.
Yep.
And so, politics aside. Right, okay, Mary's going to be up next. She's going to be talking about the legal aid crisis that's coming up. And don't worry, Mary, I will be doing your captions. Don't need to ask.
Thank you, Mark.
So we'll
Thank you.
Back with that in a second. Thank people for being...
Thank people for what?
Just thank for people for being in the show. How about that idea?
I'm always very thankful for people being on the show. Thank you, everyone, for watching us tonight. I know the weather is cold outside, and I hope you're cozy watching us tonight. Okay, so this week the Herald newspaper has been running a series of articles about Scotland's legal aid crisis. There are now fears that many Scottish towns have become what they're calling legal aid deserts. The Central Belt is probably not too bad at the moment, but the crisis is already being felt in some rural areas where people are already having problems with accessing justice. Figures from the Scottish Legal Aid Board showed that there were no private firms or solicitors on court duty. Now, I think when they talk about court duty, they're talking about that means that you can get legal aid. So there are no private firms or solicitors in Kirkwall or Lochmaddy. And even towns including Banff, Fort William, Lanark. Now, Grumpy Git said he was in Lanark tonight. Lerwick, Loch Gilphead, Portree and Wick have only got one private solicitor each on the court duty plan. So the legal profession themselves are extremely concerned about the declining number of solicitors who are taking on legal aid cases. It's so bad that Pat Tom, she's the convener of the Law Society of Scotland's Civil Legal Aid Committee, she says the whole Scottish government need to recognise the whole legal aid system's going down the tubes. Now, there are two main reasons for this. The first is that more than a third of the legal aid lawyers in Scotland are due to retire in the next decade, leading to fears that the current crisis in criminal law might end up being unsolvable. There's just not enough lawyers. The number of solicitors registered for legal aid aged over 40 outnumber those under 40 by 2 to 1. So you can see where this is going. The second reason is Pat Tom says it was becoming unaffordable for lawyers to take on legal aid work. They say they're not making enough money from legal aid to cover the outlays or to cover expenses. They say we can't run an office on the money that we're earning from legal aid. So that would be the money that would be allocated by the Scottish Government. So what's going to happen is ordinary people are not going to be able to get representation. They're not going to be able to get justice. Now, most Scots probably haven't been worried about the country's legal aid crisis so far because they don't really think it'll impact them. But there's a lot of cases that people maybe haven't really thought of where actually it will impact you. There's everyday situations where, people don't really think about, for example, like guardianship, where you maybe have a power of attorney, but that has limitations. And sometimes people need to apply for guardianship. And you would automatically be eligible for legal aid. But these days you can't find a solicitor that will actually take you on for that. And there's a lot of there's other cases where someone who's maybe been the survivor of domestic abuse and maybe you want to take civil action against the abuser, and they would be eligible to get legal aid, but they won't be able to find a legal aid solicitor who will actually take it on for them. So what they're saying is, look, people haven't really thought about this, but it could actually affect anyone. We might,
you might need the legal aid sometime, right?
Yeah, well, people might be thinking, oh, well, I'm not planning on committing any crime, so I'm not going to need legal aid. But it's not just for crimes, it's all the civil things as well. Sometimes things that you don't plan, the kind of things I've just been talking about. So I think we need to pay more attention and pressure the government to do more to protect legal aid.
Wow.
Sorry, David?
I'm just saying, wow, I didn't realise it was anything like this sort of situation.
Well, you think what type of things you think can actually be done, Mary? Do you know?
Well, I think the proposals were given to the Scottish Government. I think there were like 67 different proposals that were put forward of, 67 different action items, things that the government could do to help the case.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened is that the Scottish Government are basically just kicking it into the long grass. So Roddy Dunlop, KC, he said the Scottish Government are not acting on the concerns, doubtless because they don't feel they have the money and, think other matters have been prioritised.
Yeah.
But this is going to end very, very badly.
Absolutely.
For the legal system.
If you can't get legal aid, you can't get justice, obviously, because not everybody can afford a fancy lawyer. Is
there a kind of brain drain part?
Yeah. So half of it's the brain drain, and half of it is that the Scottish Government are not paying enough for legal aid. So I take it it's like, if a lawyer does a certain type of work, they get paid a certain type of money through legal aid, and they're saying it's not enough.
Yeah.
So the part that's unsolvable at the moment is the part where the brain drain. It's the lawyers retiring. So most of these lawyers are doing legal aid, or criminal or civil. A lot of them are like old guys, and they're just about to retire. And there's not enough young people coming through. Young people coming through the legal system, they want to work for private firms.
Well, I read an article. It was an article in Telegraph this week. It was all about young lawyers in London. Yeah. And if you're a top lawyer, let's say you graduate in the top part of your class in Glasgow University or any Scottish university, you can go down to London, work for a US law firm. Starting salary, £160,000 a year.
Jesus.
Starting salary. And of course, and there was a bunch of interviews with people complaining, young people complaining because they were working 8-hour weeks or whatever. But when you're young, you work 8-hour week, and you make 160,000 a year. It's a trade off. You can.
I think it'd be very, very, very stressful, and in Scotland you don't get paid that amount, but you certainly get paid a lot more if you go into a private firm, or I think if you work on like other types of government work or so on. So there's less and less lawyers actually taking on any legal aid work.
Yes, and as Gumpy says here, it's just so expensive to go private in some cases, or in some cases you shouldn't actually be expected to actually have to pay for some things. If you've not got the means to pay, you should still be able to get some kind of justice. I think it's quite intriguing, that, Mary, and I think we need to keep an eye on that and see, keep us updated with that one. Right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on our show. Things you can do right now to support the show are you can buy a t-shirt or a mug made by Santa's elves who are not slaves in his workshop up in I don't know where it is, North Pole somewhere.
Lapland.
Lapland, that's it. That's Lapland. Candy Cane Land, or whatever it is. Okay, anyway, you can subscribe to the show also on YouTube. You can tell your friends about us, and you can do all of the above, which makes us feel extremely happy and fulfilled. Underlined exclamation mark. Coming up, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It is the highlight of the week. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay!
Okay, that is. Okay, are you with us?
What happened there?
My Zoomer of the Week is Partrick Harvie. A couple of days ago, Donald Trump's son Eric said that the president-elect will visit Scotland in the new year. One might think that could be some cause for celebration. After all, which other small countries does the leader of the free world visit regularly?
True.
And which other peasants are half Scottish? Trump's mother, Mary McLeod, was born and raised in Tong on the Isle of Lewis and spoke Gaelic. Before she left when she was 21, I think. And she did quite well. Apparently, I read an article actually about this, and it was quite interesting. She left. Lots of people left at that time because there was nothing going on. And actually, it was because there was a disaster or something, and a lot of the young men in the towns died, and then the women didn't have any prospects because there were no men around. Dear.
Goodness.
It was
she went to America and found Mr. Trump.
Yes, Mr. Trump. And the rest is history, as they say. But this shocking insult to Scots of Donald Trump coming to Scotland prompted Partrick Harvie, co-leader of the Scottish Greens, to jump out of his high chair in disgust. Spitting out his dummy, Wee Paddy said he represents everything that we as a nation do not wish to be.
What, successful?
Yeah, Scotland must be loud and clear that we do not agree with his toxic values or his harmful business ventures. Anyway, it goes on. Well, first of all, Partrick, you don't get to say what the nation of Scotland wants to be. You don't get to say that because you didn't get elected in a constituency, and you and your so-called Green compatriots were barely elected in Scotland's broken list system. Let's compare, shall we?
Please.
The support from Donald Trump in Scotland and the Scottish Greens. Now, in a few weeks ago, a poll was released, 21% of Scots said that they support Trump. And most likely, a good proportion more would do that if it was seen as being socially acceptable to say they support Trump. But let's just take the 21% of Scots. By my calculations, that's 1,152,921 people. Keep that in mind, that number, right? Anyway, 1.15 million. And in fact, as I was looking at this, it said 52% of Scottish men or Scotsmen said they wanted Trump to win over Harris. I thought it was quite interesting. That was actually female Scots women.
You said it was Scotsmen?
No, the men won 52%, but the women wanted Harris to win. And this percentage, anyway, was the highest of Trump support, the highest support in the Western world, outside of America, that is. But Partrick Harvie, now let's see Partrick Harvie's support. Okay, he got, and his whole party got 13,172 votes in the constituencies and 150,426 votes on the list. Now, by my calculations, using my wee calculator on my computer, I said that's 7.5 times more people support Trump in Scotland than support Partrick Harvie's entire party. So, and let's just talk about these values that Trump supposedly represents that are so awful. Stopping woke nonsense, cutting government waste, rolling back illegal immigration, stopping money going to climate grifters, and supporting entrepreneurship and growth. I'm pretty sure the majority of Scots are for all of that. So for trying to speak like the moral arbiter of Scotland while having neither the following nor the policies, I nominate the political baby known as Partrick Harvie as my Zoomer.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, I mean, interesting. Those constituency figures for the Greens are interesting because that's about half of the amount of votes that All for Unity got in the list. So that's a negligible amount of votes. But of course, the majority of those 150,000 list votes were all tactical SNP voters,
Yes.
or else, possibly more likely, they were Green voters tactically voting SNP in the constituencies. You can't tell really, but anyway, nobody wants
It's
to.
an overlap. I mean, this is the thing. You've got these people who are barely elected,
Yeah.
trying to say that they speak for Scotland.
Yes.
And when the majority of people in Scotland are not interested in what they have to say, and think they're the extremists they are, but they've been able to capture. They captured government for a while.
Yeah.
They captured the media for a while as well.
That's true.
But their time has come, and I just had to say that there's going to be, of course, one other person who won't be greeting Trump this time with any kind of placard, and we're all quieter for it, I think.
On Twitter, indeed. And I know that later on we'll be discussing the person whom I believe is being groomed to be this particular person's successor. I think that's equally unfair. I think both these people were wholly unsuited to being held up as totems of independence. I think it's an absolute disgrace how they've both been treated by their own side. And it's just been ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows who we're talking about. Anyway, yeah. So yeah.
Yes. Anyway, back to Harvie. You don't have the following. You don't have the moral. You don't have the backing. You're an extremist. How can you say that you are talking for the Scottish people?
Absolutely.
As you run around your bicycle with a helmet. It's like
no helmet.
Exactly. Right. Anyway, next up is going to be David Zoomer.
Good one, Mark. Good.
Oh, thanks, mate. That's good.
Right. Just to answer the question that was posed there. No, when I do this move, guys, it's not because I'm reaching a bottle of Bucky or anything. I really have my glass of water.
Scotland's national drink. Yeah.
If only it were true. But no, I actually have a little heater here, which I occasionally switch on and off. It's because I'm a big wimp and I need heat. Isn't it awful?
Are you getting the winter fuel allowance?
Yeah, you could do with your winter fuel allowance, David.
See if I don't get a pension yet. Never mind pension credits. That's a likely one.
And it's shower us with this money, this winter fuel money. That's what we need. Just come in. It's 300. It's £300 one time, isn't it?
One off. I believe that's correct. Yes. So yeah. They know I'd only go and waste it across the road in the variety of boozers here. Anyway, never mind. Okay. So
as others do.
Indeedy. So my nomination for Zoomer this week is Honest John Swinney. Now this comes after the party's NEC agreed to look at a proposal to streamline. It's one way of putting it. Staffing levels. So basically the SNP's firing its own staff, guys and gals. Now, as part of this process, a voluntary redundancy scheme has been opened within the party, and this all comes amid speculation that the SNP is about to cut its staff numbers by 40%. Now, I don't know if you're the same as me, but when I heard that figure, I thought 40%, that must be several hundred, but no. The proposal is to reduce SNP staff numbers from 26 to 16. So I guess these staff members are actually SPADs and speechwriters, I presume, because you can get away without having to employ more people if, like the SNP, you're able to appropriate Scotland's civil servants, police service and judiciary to do your bidding, which is what they've been doing for years, as we know. So I guess that's why they're able to be relatively streamlined already, but not enough, apparently. So what that means is...
Well, it's the SNP of administration, the SNP as a... It's not as the parliamentary organisation, right?
It's the party itself. That's exactly right. So yeah, so it's the party. It's like the guys who I suppose book the ministerial limousines for Neil Gray, because I'm sure he doesn't phone up and do it himself. So it's the guys who do the administrative stuff. Yeah, I'm sure that's correct. Yeah. Anyway, in addition to all that other stuff, so they'll have.
Talk to members and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Because for the government itself, you can obviously get more. So in Holyrood, they can get more people. In Westminster, less so now because of obviously the short money being decimated. So yeah, some they're clearly feeling the pinch, which is great. Anyway, so when sorry, I don't mean to be nasty here. Anyway,
we're loving it.
Thank you. So of course, when questioned about the proposed staff cuts, Swinney said the following: "The party is financially strong, but we have got to keep it that way. And that is what the difficult process that we have got to go through involves. How's that for an appalling misuse of the English language? Oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for having uttered those words from my mouth. I feel sullied for having used the language so appallingly there. Anyway,
Isn't that austerity?
yeah, exactly right. That's austerity. If you haven't got money, you cut back by cutting costs. That is austerity, guys. That's what it is. As we know, that's what they would do in spades if they ever got in position to try and join the EU, for example. So there you go, guys. The SNP is financially strong, so much so they're forced to get rid of 2/5 of their staff members just before Christmas. Now, I can tell you, when I was an employer, every time I felt, right, we're in good shape, I know, let's sack 40% of the staff, because that's how you keep it. Brilliant. So, yeah, always a sure sign of a financially robust organisation. So Swinney has a lifelong habit, as we know, of telling blatant untruths in a wholly unconvincing attempt to deflect difficult questions. Literally not one person believes anything he says on this matter. They certainly didn't believe him about Michael Madsen. They don't believe him about Neil Gray. They don't believe him about anything he says, particularly not staffing, firing his own staff. So for yet another laughably transparent falsehood, safe hands. Oops, Swinney is my Zoomer of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
but I was actually going to do it, Swinney, because there was this thing, this politician of the year. Can you believe they have this thing? The Scottish politician of the year.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you know, what is it? You know, it should be the worst politician of the year. That would good. Be all tuning in for
fun.
that. Actually, that would be like the golden raspberry or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's right.
Or the wooden spoon type of thing. They should be, get their knuckles wrapped in a wooden spoon. Anyway, it turns out the two nominations for this thing are John Swinney and Forbes. Scottish politician of the year. Now, Kate Forbes hasn't done F all in the past year, so I don't know why she's in there. But Swinney is in there. Swinney's presided over, and someone, Agent P, wrote this list: a loss of 39 MPs, loss of 12 by-elections in a row, mass redundancies, as you say, at the HQ, membership rate off a cliff, backed Harris, and Trump won. He's got a complete civil war going on in his party, and so many U-turns are spinning out of control, and these constant grifters are going on. And if he's nominated for politician of the year, it's insanity. It really is.
Who's running this Scottish politician of the year?
I saw this. I actually said it was sponsored by Scottish Power. And really? In association with Scottish Power.
They're sponsoring it. Doesn't mean they're necessarily the selection committee, though. Who knows?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Anyway, but
the selection committee is probably John Swinney and Kate Forbes.
Exactly. A couple of comments here.
I think it's just a schmoozing.
I'm sure it will be. A couple of comments here just talking about Nicola Sturgeon having said something broadly similar about 2 years ago. Remember, she was caught on video saying the party's in robust financial health. I don't want anybody saying anything different. I know there's going to be a leak of this conversation. I'm really sorry to have to say it, but I know there will be. My God, this paranoia was just dripping from the woman at the time while she was telling this blatant lie. So honestly, these people just don't know where the lies stop anymore, do they really?
Well, also, of course, got to take into account the missing 600,000 as well. That's a few good salaries in the SNP HQ, no doubt.
Yep. Sure is.
So we'll see that. Very good. Very good. Very detailed. I mean, he's... Yeah, what was it? Okay, right, Mary, you're going to be... Let's see if you are going to usurp us all with your amazing Zoomer. All right, with you in a second. Right, you're up.
Thank you. My Zoomer of the week is Iona Fyfe. Yeah, she calls herself a folk singer, but she's better known for being a vile nationalist. She is currently attempting to become the rector of Aberdeen University.
God.
Many people are calling for the university to axe her as a candidate over a viral tweet about the late Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
It's a resurfaced tweet where she appears to make a joke about the death of Queen Elizabeth. It led to widespread anger on social media, with the Scottish Tories now urging Aberdeen University to take action and remove her from the contest. Have you got the tweet there, Mark?
Yes, I've got it.
So the social media post was an image of a man
that's
being...
her there, right? Okay.
Right.
And the tweet is this one here, which basically shows a bunch of people beating Rangers.
Yeah.
A person labelled as Rangers.
Yeah.
Which includes football teams, and also at the side, Queen Deed over here.
Yeah, so the people doing the assaulting are labelled 4-0 Celtic,
and
4-0 Ajax, and Aberdeen Saturday or something, Queen Deed. So the meme was dated on April 23rd, 2023, and it was to troll Rangers for their poor run of results at the time, as well as one of the club's main figureheads in Queen Elizabeth dying. And she's deleted the tweet. So Ms. Fyfe is notorious for trolling Rangers fans in social media. And, maybe that's fair enough. Sporting rivalry, we could call that. But she's also an outspoken SNP supporter, she's always on the radio, she's always on the TV, sticking up for nationalists as well as Nicola Sturgeon. And that, to me, that clearly demonstrates partisan bad judgment. So Scottish Tory MSP Alexander Burnett, he called on Aberdeen University to drop her as a candidate. He said, Iona Fyfe's disrespectful comments about the Queen, among many other things, have no place at basically Aberdeen University. The role of rector is to ensure all voices are heard and represented fairly when making important decisions on behalf of students. But Iona, I've just lost my place. Hold on a wee second. But she's definitely not a good ambassador. She wouldn't be a good ambassador for the university. So she tried to defend her conduct. She said, I'd like to clarify that these posts are not about the sad passing of the late Queen. It's basically just a football meme that was going around, she said. And if anyone is offended...
Oh, God, I hate when you say that.
I know. It's like, yes, many people were offended. Anyway, let's hope that Aberdeen University students vote to reject her vile nationalism and disrespect, because she's a Zoomer.
Yeah, she is a Zoomer. She was in the news actually again this week with this article here, which basically said she's under fire for saying Scots are better than the rest of the UK.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yes, she said, told her 20,000 followers, really. Scotland holds very different values in the United Kingdom. We're a nation that wants to uphold our human rights, uphold our connection and membership of the European Union, and truly be welcoming to new Scots. Please don't think the United Kingdom speaks for Scotland when every survey on social values basically says that Scots have the same attitudes on immigration as the rest of the country. And I'm pretty certain, I'm absolutely certain, as immigration does rise in this country, that Scots will be more against it than people in the rest of the UK. Anyway, but I think the point here, Mary, is why on earth does she think that she should be the rector of the university? I
was wondering, is there much money involved in it? Maybe that's why.
It's like, maybe you should apply. You've not got a history.
You think the young students would vote for me?
Of viral tweets, Mary.
That's true.
So yes, so you're off with the start there, right? Yeah, vote for Mary. There we go. Stephen Bailey says he'd vote for you. Mary.
Thanks,
right?
Stephen. One vote. I'm trying to put Mark. Are you putting this? Let me take over.
Okay, you can take over from the chat.
Right, we'll just leave that on the screen, okay?
Right, okay. I shouldn't give you ideas, I suppose. Next, you'll be, going for the rector of every university around.
I'm sorry, I can't be on the show. I'm rectoring.
Okay. Anyway, David, you're up for deciding.
Oh my goodness me! Right. Okay. Well, this is how I would view the three candidates. Iona Fyfe, I don't even like talking about the woman, to be honest with you. I think she's a complete non-entity, much like the person to whom you referred earlier, Mark, Ms. Godley. I really don't think that these are people who should be held up in public and discussed. It's a bit like poking a lunatic with a sharp stick, as they did in the old days. I don't feel comfortable doing it at all. And I think she's far too insignificant even to...
Well, they're trying to make themselves significant, right? And
exactly. Maybe he was invited. I don't know to stand, but I don't know. Anyway, to me, these are just doomed individuals. I really don't like them. Anyway,
what they like to do is create controversy around them.
Of course they do. And then
when you criticise them, then they blame you.
That's exactly right. Then they play the victim card, as they say.
It's terrible.
But good nomination, Mary. But no, it's not going to be Iona and Swinney. Bit too obvious, I think. I mean, the man is just the epitome of incompetence. So I'm going to give it to Harvie for his idiotic suggestion and say, let's cut all ties with the United States of America. Really, Patrick. That's a fantastic scheme. So no, Harvie for his anti-business, anti-everything that isn't his idea stance. He gets it. He's the Zoomer, baby.
I agree with that. Yep.
He says it should be met with mass protests. I'd like to see how many people we can get to come out. Many garden gnomes can come along with him. Like him and a whole set of garden
Don't
gnomes.
insult garden gnomes.
Yeah, true.
That's very true there. Yes. Well, okay, Partrick Harvie, you are our Zoomer of the week.
Deservedly so.
Oh, it's just like the just no shame. Anyway. We're so happy to have you all with us on the show every week in Scotland's #1 politics chat. We will see you again, same time, same place next Wednesday. Now, thought of the week, and now the problem with these thought of the week, sometimes they're quotes. And when you put a quote up, you go, "Oh, that's great! I found a George Orwell quote. This is great, perfect." And then you look it up, and then if it turns out it's not George Orwell, it's not Mark Twain, it's some other nobody. This is the problem. But anyway, this one's supposed to be from George Orwell, but isn't. So,
What is it?
Yeah. What's up, David?
Oh, what's this one here?
What's up?
No, I was saying it. I was just reading it. I was just reading the quote. No, I wasn't saying.
Oh, yeah, it says, okay, people that elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves, and traitors are not victims, but accomplices.
It's a great quote. Who is it? Do we know?
No, it's supposed to. Well, I did a wee bit of reading on it, and it said it's kind of a mishmash of maybe something Orwell did say.
Okay.
Anyway, yes, accomplices, not victims. Accomplices.
He has a point, whoever it was.
Yes, he does have a point. Anyway,
Okay.
Thank you all for your support, and we will see you again next week. Same time, same place. Thank you for Mary for all your help.
Thanks, everyone, for all your comments tonight.
And thank you, David, for your insight. We've always appreciated.
Anytime, guys. Great interaction again, as always. Thanks, everybody. Fantastic.
Okay, and I do want to say maybe have one special announcement coming next week, so please tune in. We'll tell you more as it unfolds. All right, we'll see you then. All right, take care. Bye now.
Bye, guys.
Good night.